feel like the only way that can start is with like a scat. I should have been a jazz musician.
Oh God, this movie made me like wish rather than like watch 100 hours of SpongeBob as a kid, I like picked up a trumpet or something.
Yeah, you just boom, nailed it. And I accidentally just hit my hand on the desk, and now my dogs are going crazy. What a electric intro to this episode of Hey, What You Doing? So I guess, without further ado, Tony Frisco, what are we doing?
Well, we're a bit sluggish. It's the last day of vacation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm feeling good. We're gonna dive into it. This is this second movie in the row we've watched. It's really deep.
Second movie in a row that we've watched with deep, emotional, thought-provoking, character-driven storylines. We're talking today about the newest release from Pixar, Soul, on Disney Plus. And if you haven't streamed it yet, do yourself a favor, press pause on this here podcast and go watch it. I think that it's not a stretch to say, Tony Frisco, that it is well worth the viewer's time to go watch this.
Yeah. It is, I would say, one of the best. Again, was not many movies in 2020. It was probably one of the best, in my opinion. It's not
a stretch.
No, it's electric from start to finish. Just every little aspect about it is a little piece of gold.
I would agree with you. So this movie comes to us, like we had said, from the animation geniuses at Pixar. It looks, feels, sounds like a Pixar movie through and through. It is directed by Pete Docter and Kemp Powers. And for those of you that are a little bit on like the uninitiated side, they are powerhouses when it comes to Pixar. Pete Docter is the director, writer for Pixar films like Monsters Incorporated, Up, Inside Out, WALL-E, all that good stuff. I believe that Kemp Powers has worked on quite a variance of different films. So he's a little bit outside of the Pixar realm, but he is a writer and director himself. This is actually his first co-directing experience. Quite the film to have as your first credit. We've actually kind of had that with back-to-back films. Last week when we talked about Palm Springs, that was another first-time big movie director too. So good for you, Kemp Powers. It stars Jamie Foxx as our lead character, Joe. Tina Fey as 22, and I guess we'll talk a little bit about why her character is just a number. Graham Norton, Richard Ayoade, Questlove is in here as well. Angela Bassett.
Questlove's in this?
Yeah. Questlove plays the role of Curly, who is Joe's student that invites him to be in the quartet.
Oh, damn, I didn't even realize.
Yeah. Good old Questlove. And I mean, you know what? That's fitting. He's a wonderful musician in his own right. He deserves to be in a movie where musicianship is the focal point. So good for you, Questlove. Roots Crew, legendary.
And he played the drums. That is so on brand.
Oh, well, yeah. Shit, I didn't even put that together. I should have put that together. But yes, his character plays the drums. Questlove in real life is an amazing drummer. So it all comes full circle. Good for him. But yeah, so that's like the little 411 on the people behind this movie. Just to give a super quick, brief summary, we'll just go with the IMDb plot here. If you guys are unfamiliar with the movie and you're interested in it, Soul is about a musician who has lost his passion for music and is transported out of his body and must find his way back with the help of an infant soul. There's that 22 character that we talked about with Tina Fey. Learning about herself. So there's kind of a bit of an accident that allows all of that to happen. So that's about as spoiler-free as we'll be up until this point. So if you don't want the movie ruined for you, stop listening now and go watch it. But let's just get some preliminary thoughts here, Rizzo. What are your first thoughts that you had when it came to Soul?
Before we go into this, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that the director's name was Pete Docter. Could you imagine if he was a doctor? That just came to my mind. Doctor
Doctor.
That would be awesome.
Doctor.
But as for the movie, I mean, I said it before, it is so damn deep, and it, like, I don't even know. It's a lot of stuff that I feel like I've been thinking about recently. Again, kind of having to do with COVID, and I don't know. It was very well done. I feel like Pixar does this all the time with like things that you don't. They do a good way of like having imagination on like how everyday life stuff happens. I don't know how to explain that, but like Inside Out, very similar.
Yep.
Even like Toy Story, like what do your toys do when you're not in the room? Like everything they think of is like so creative. It's quite the adventure, and I loved it.
I mean, first of all, I agree. Full context with what you're saying there. Pixar, to me, Sarah and I were talking a little bit about this last night after we got done watching the movie. Pixar is incredible. I don't know how they do the things that they do when it comes to the storylines that they create. It's unprecedented to me that they can make movies that the marketing, the look, the feel of them, everything about it screams children's movie. And then you watch it and you go, I don't think a child would understand the deeper meaning here, but my God, this is a beautiful, well thought out movie and story. It's incredible to me that they have been able to do this and that they basically don't make bad movies. I think the worst movies that Pixar has ever made are probably the Cars movies. Maybe.
See, I like Cars 1. I think it's decent. I mean, I know it's pretty like generic, but I kind of like it. I've never seen the sequels to Cars, and from what I've heard, Cars 2 is horrible.
I don't really use Rotten Tomatoes as the end all be all, but for the purposes of this discussion, Rotten Tomatoes has Cars 2 as easily the worst Pixar movie of all time.
Yeah, they're like secret agents. It doesn't make any sense. But I've never seen it. I gotta give it a chance at least.
I think it's kind of funny because I'm looking now and it's Cars 2 is the worst. Cars 3 is the second to worst. But even Cars 3, the critics' consensus is that Cars 3 has an unexpectedly poignant story to go with its dazzling animation. And, maybe it's unexpectedly poignant because Cars 2 was such a hot mess. I don't know.
We should do Cars 2 now.
We might have to. We might have to do the entire trilogy at some point just so that we can check those off the list.
Side note, Cars, the video game, is great.
What was that for? Was that
PS2?
for PS2?
I had it in like 7th grade or something, and it actually was like, it was pretty like open world for a kids game, and highly suggest. I want to find that for like, I don't know. How can I play that on PS4?
I don't know. We can figure out a way though. Maybe it's like a DLC at this point. You can probably find it on the PlayStation Network store or something like that.
I've been on the lookout for Hit and Run, Simpsons Hit and Run.
Oh, that was a great game. Yeah.
All-time game.
Damn, you know what? We should have one of our bonus apps just be Simpsons Hit and Run, Cars PlayStation. Mark that down in this podcast.
I actually own them both, and I just found my PS2 at my parents' over Christmas. So,
and I think we have plans. But yeah, so like I said, I'm interested in your thoughts on that though, because I think it's interesting that as two grown individuals, well, somewhat, we have adult responsibilities, but our minds are very much not fully matured. How you just kind of feel about that in general? Like, how is Pixar able to do this so consistently where they are making quote unquote children's movies, but they're not even close to only being for children? There's so many overly, I don't want to say adult themes, but more mature themes in a way that I think would just be completely over the head of any child that watches it. but it's something that as like a parent maybe taking your child to go see, you're walking away from that movie going, wow, that was profound and affected me in some way.
Yeah, and it's not only like I feel like every other like animated, like, don't get me wrong, I love Shrek, but like Shrek doesn't have any like deeper meanings. They're just like crude or humor, whereas like this is like it's like I mean, there's humor that I guess only adults would understand, but it's not like it's not like crude or anything. It's just like smarter, I guess.
I would say that. I would say that at the risk of sounding elitist when it comes to animation movies, it is. It's a smart, and I think a great word would be thoughtful. It's very thoughtful, and it's very. It takes what it's saying and treats it with a seriousness that's not trying to bludgeon you over the head with, oh, this is what life is all about. It's just a very kind, gentle, thoughtful way of saying, hey, all these things that we maybe take for granted in our everyday life, these are why these things are important. It's very weird that we've had such seriously profound movies in the past 2 weeks that have been masquerading as something else. We had one that was masquerading as a rom-com, and now this one's masquerading as a children's movie.
I was thinking that midway through. I was like, God, we gotta like. I mean, I like it, but this isn't my territory to go deep on stuff. Like, and that's actually why I have to admit I stayed up a little late. So I watched Soul a couple like a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
So last night I did not get a lot of sleep because I was up late watching another movie, which is going to be my suggestion at the end. So I think we need to get off the train of serious movies.
We've got to hit something a little bit more lowbrow than this. We've been pouring our souls out in these podcasts, talking about how COVID has affected us and our livelihoods, and now we need a reprieve for sure. But before we get to that, so let's talk a little bit about, I guess, what are some of maybe your key takeaways as it pertains to some of the characters?
Well, first of all, it threw me off that he died in alert, in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, so now that we're into the spoiler zone, so basically within the first 10 minutes of the movie, Joe dies.
Yeah, I would say
for all intents and purposes, he dies.
And Charlotte like looked at me like, oh my God, did he just, and then he comes as like the little soul, and she was like, oh my God, he died.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I don't think it's supposed to be that sad because we don't really know him.
Right, exactly. I mean, we get the fact that he's the high school music teacher, that there's definitely some dreams left unfulfilled, and then he catches this break where he's auditioning for this fantastic jazz quartet, and then dies before he can realize this dream of jazz superstardom. Which I have to say, real quick, before we get into his whole death sequence, this is another thing that Pixar, I think, does really well, that I'm always kind of astonished by. When they choose to go with kind of a super specific topic as kind of the background of their story, they always seem to do it really well. And what I mean by that, for this particular instance, jazz is kind of our background, and it's all about his love of jazz, his love of music. I think that they could have gone about it in a way where the music or the jazz that they're playing is very like, paint by number, and it's very like I was doing at the beginning of the show, just like scatting and weird stuff that any legitimate jazz musician would probably roll their eyes at. It's always amazing to me that they can take that subject matter and treat it so well that when you're watching it, you're going, wow, that's really good. I'm invested in this now because I think that that's cool what they're doing. Like his whole getting in the zone moments where he's playing and he's like getting lost in what he's playing. It was interesting to me because it's like, wow, yeah, I could imagine that's similar to what someone would feel like. That looks like what a musician would feel like. It's just a weird little detail that I had to get in there. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I was trying to think, like, what have I ever like gotten in the zone for? And I don't even. I think the only thing would be like, well, I guess like while I'm working, I guess I'm in the zone,
Mm-hmm.
and then like driving.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
you just like forget. Like you'll be driving for like 45 minutes, and you're like, oh my god, like
How did
how
that
did
get
I get?
here?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I can liken it to is I've done sports my whole life, and I haven't been in the zone much throughout that time because I'm not very good. But when I have my brief moments of really good sports playing, I I understand a little bit what they're saying. Your mind is just completely blank, and then you're searching the whole rest of the time for why did my mind go blank there, and why was I so good for that brief period of time?
Yeah,
And it just counteracts it to where now you're thinking about it too much and then you suck.
it's scary being in the zone. It was like
Oh yeah.
the whole being in the zone world that they were in was like
Mm-hmm.
very eerie.
It really was. Yeah. A really eerie place, but also kind of a quiet serenity, if you will. It's a weird balance.
Yeah.
I also really liked the fact that when they did get in the zone, it was just full of hippies and
It was either people who were dead or hippies.
or hippies with tie-dye sails in their ship and everything.
Oh,
And Bob
that
Dylan.
was my that was my favorite aspect of the movie. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if you were thinking this. I was like, come on, give me one dead song on the
Oh,
boat.
absolutely. When they showed it and you've got a sailboat coming at you full mast with nothing but tie-dye, immediately I thought, give me Franklin's Tower. If Franklin's Tower's not playing during this, I don't believe in it.
And like before they were showing all of like the people who had trained like number 22
Mm.
before he does.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, come on, give me Jerry on this boat.
Oh
Like,
man, that would have been so good.
because
So
at that point we didn't know that you didn't have to be dead to be there. So I was like, oh, give me Jerry.
Jerry. Well, technically, all of them were named Jerry. Now that I think about it, I just put all that together. You remember how they're at the soul? What do they call that area where this
Oh,
before life section where all the souls are just learning about themselves? All those people, the kind of the guides, they were all named Jerry.
oh my God.
And then the one guy that keeps the count of all the people that should be going to the afterlife was Terry.
Uh-huh.
So maybe in a way that was a little homage. Let's call it an homage to Jerry.
We're making Dr. Deadhead.
Dr. Deadhead. I did like the fact that they
Ooh.
had Bob Dylan though. I mean, that's if it's not going to be Jerry and the boys launching into Sugary, at least it was Bob Dylan. That's cool with me. I can
True.
take that. So let's go back. We were talking about sort of the death scene first. So he falls through the manhole cover after getting his big break, and then his soul, as we learn, is starting to go into the afterlife. If that's what the afterlife looks like, are you thinking, okay, cool, I'm down with that? Or are you throwing up your hands and saying, I don't like any part of what that entails? Because I have to say, as I was watching it, I was saying to myself, you know what? If that's what happens when the lights go out, he is turned into a lovable little blue squishy guy. I'm cool with that. I'm
I I was here for it too. I think it was I was like, honestly, if that's what I'm really made of, that little blue guy, like I'm cool with everything.
mm-hmm.
Um I mean, we never really see what the afterlife's like in the movie.
True. Good point.
We only see like getting there and he tries everything in his power to not go there. But I liked where we were headed.
Yes. Which, again, deeper parts of the Pixar experience coming up here. I think that that's interesting that he dies and he has this opportunity to go into the afterlife, which, if we're just using context clues, seems pretty good. It seems like a good situation. You're a lovable blue squishy person. You're surrounded by other lovable blue squishy souls, and you're all just kind of going into this big bright light. It doesn't seem too intimidating. Even still, he wants nothing to do with it. He goes, no, give me back to Earth. I want to be there. It's interesting to me because so many people, their whole life's journey is all about getting to the afterlife and having a good afterlife. And yet here is our protagonist, Joe, and he says, absolutely not. I don't want any part of that. And just an interesting thought, like a lot to unpack there.
The one thing I will say about the movie that I like, that was a little, I don't know, like unbelievable for me was the fact they were acting like no one had ever pulled this stunt before, like trying to get back.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, like there has to have been like another person, and like I wish they would have acted like this was like a common occurrence, and they had it like, oh, here's another one that is trying to get away. It just felt odd to me that they're like, he's the first person to try and pull this.
Right. Well, and especially because Terry, the guy that keeps the count for souls getting in there, Terry attacks it like it's maybe something that has happened to him before. But all of the counselors, the Jerry counselors, they pretend that, to them, this has never been a thing, ever. This is new territory. But also, the Jerrys just kind of seem more aloof than Terry. Terry is very much like, we need to get these things done.
Yeah.
This is a professional environment. Things must occur in a certain manner. And all the Jerrys are more free love and just like, well, whatever, man. Kind of, what? The more that I'm talking about it, the more this has to have been inspired by the Grateful Dead and Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, taking it back, this is a big Dead podcast. So, yeah, a Dead-friendly podcast. So, I think that's what they were going for. In our eyes, that's what they were going for.
Absolutely. And I won't hear anything to the contrary. So once Joe realizes that he's just running away from all of these problems, he winds up with all of the little souls that have not been developed yet. And that's where we meet 22, which is Tina Fey's character. And 22 is a little soul that needs to get, what do they call it? A spark? That's like what the last thing that they need before they go to heaven, or not to heaven, excuse me, to Earth, to basically inhabit a body, a child. And that's like the last part that's needed for a complete soul is the spark. And old 22 can't find it. And then in a roundabout way, it falls on Joe to try to guide her to get that so that he can basically steal her Earth pass and go back into his own body. There's a lot to unpack in this section of the movie.
Yeah. Well, because again, spoiler alert, like she can't find her spark, but their understanding of what the spark is misunderstood.
Oh yeah.
They think it's like a hobby,
basically. Yeah, like what I'm good at.
Whereas like again, spoiler alert, what it ends up being is like just like what makes you feel life, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how I understood it.
Yeah, and this is where we get into deeper territory. When you're first watching them try to go through and find this spark, that's exactly what it seems like. It seems like, oh, this spark for this soul is supposed to be a hobby of some kind, a passion of some kind. And it's interesting that the movie reinforces that throughout the entirety of the film. You get the section where the student, one of Joe's students, comes to him for her weekly lesson and is all about, I want to quit music. I don't want to do this anymore. She plays the trombone, but then she plays for Joe, who is, at this point is actually the 22 character, and realizes that she loves it and that she is, wants to stick it out. She wants to do all these things with the trombone. and they think, oh, well, that's her spark, obviously, is to play trombone. And it reinforces that throughout the movie with other various people about, oh, their spark in life is that they're a tailor, or their spark in life is that they're into music. And you just constantly think all of those things. But then just when you least expect it, Pixar sneaks up on you and it says, oh, no, my friend, that's not what it is at all. But it's interesting because as you're watching the movie, you're thinking along with them and going, oh, yeah, that's true. You do have to have a spark. You do have to live for that one thing. And I think most people would probably be self-reflecting, like, what is my one thing as they watch it? Damn you, Pixar. You got us to search our internal beings, and we sure did. We did a lot of reflecting.
Yep. And then we realized it's not what it's all about at all.
Not at all. But they realized that through the series of kind of, I think, what Joe would consider the mundane activities that him and 22 get into throughout the course of the movie. So what did you think about that part? So they end up getting back to Earth, albeit they get back and 22, this little infant soul, is in Joe's body, and Joe is inhabiting this random ass cat. What did you think about that section of the flick?
I mean, I loved it. It was classic Freaky Friday.
Oh yeah.
Felt like I was watching Lindsay Lohan.
Cusack. Wait, no, that's not Joe. But Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm sorry, Jamie Lee Curtis.
I did love. I loved how when 22 was in his body, like, she didn't know how to walk. I thought that was like a little funny like bit, and like how to like press a button. That was like I don't know. I liked that, and I also like one like deep thing that I thought while watching it is like, because when you're born into like, they say like you forget everything like before that, like you don't remember your soul like developing, which I found it funny because like 22 knew what was going on, and I feel like the reason for that is because she was in a like developed brain. Yeah. Whereas I thought that was like very clever, because like if she would have landed in like the cat's body, she probably would have like, you know, couldn't have communicated with Joe.
Absolutely. I think that they kind of even mention, or well, they hint at that because she makes comments a couple of different times about, you know, to Joe the cat at this point about, oh, well, you're thinking of that, or you're thinking about this person. So it's a great way to tie in those previous experiences of his life with this new soul that's coming at it from a different angle, because it's obviously allowing, oh man, damn it, I just realized that this is, if I could see the world through someone else's eyes, that's exactly what this is. This is an age-old adage that Pixar has stolen.
The deep ass
Damn it, Pixar. And then you start talking about it with someone and you realize all of the little obvious things that Pixar does, but they just do it so well, and you can't help but tip your cap to them. Damn it.
I mean, this is no Secret Agent Cars movie.
This
is some deep shit.
No, which Dr. had no affiliation with the Cars movies, so no surprise there. Dr. doesn't make crap like that.
Dr. is a doctor in his own right.
Yes, a PhD of sentimental and emotional moments in film.
He got his PhD making this movie.
Absolutely. Good for him. We should give him an honorary doctorate and send it out to him.
Just for this podcast. When he's talking about in this podcast alone, he becomes a doctor.
HWDU. Hey, what you do in university? And we'll send it out to him. It'll be official and everything.
He'll put it in his Pixar office.
Yeah, we'll have to get like a calligraphist or something to really do it up nice, but we'll get to all that. So 22 and Joe have their time on Earth, and it's during this point that create this false idea of what it means to have a spark, and they don't realize that, oh, this, you know, having a spark is not really all about doing all of these different things and having these hobbies or this specialty, I guess, if you will. But I think that it's interesting how they end up coming to that conclusion, because once Joe is actually able to get back into his body, and 22 goes back to kind of like her training ground. What do they call? God, I really want to know what the name of that is. It's bugging me that I can't remember the name of the place that they're in, and I should have written it down. This is the professionalism that you get from this podcast. But anywho, once 22 is back with kind of like her infant soul, Joe is back in his body. He gets the chance to sort of live out his dream with the jazz quartet that he had auditioned for earlier in the movie. And that's where we get kind of our big reveal about what it means to have this spark. You know, he has this huge performance. He crushes it, knocks it out of the park. Everybody's happy for him. He's finally going to start to live out his dream by being a part of this awesome, famous jazz quartet. And when he goes outside, he asks the leader of the band, well, what do we do now? And when she explains to him that, oh, we just come back tomorrow night, we do the same thing. He's kind of left with this empty feeling of, oh, well, I thought I would feel differently about this. And she tells him that little like parable about the fish in the ocean and how the fish says, well, I'm looking for the ocean. And then older fish says, well, you are in the ocean. And the younger fish just says, oh, I just thought this was like a body of water. I was looking for this great big thing. I mean, when they said that, my mind was just like blown up into a million pieces. And I was just sitting there with a stunned, silent look on my face of disbelief. They cracked the code of life yet again.
I think they cracked it more than they ever have.
Oh, yeah. They said so many profound things in this one particular movie that it was enough for every single Pixar movie before it, in my opinion.
My family watched it like the day before me, and they called me. My dad called me, and he's like, "Have you seen that Soul yet?" And I was like, "No, not. I haven't watched it yet." He's like, "It's fucking great." He goes, "It's really deep."
I mean, it truly is. I mean, well, think about that too. I think it's an especially interesting message for this period of life that we live in. Because this period of life that we live in, not to be cliche, but it is true, we're so much on instant gratification when it comes to social media and how we interact with that, or with how, and, you know, people like to talk about millennials and their careers all the time, about how we hop from job to job and how we have this tendency of always looking for the next thing. And when you get that story about the fish and Joe feeling this way about, oh, I had built this up in my head as this was going to be my dream. And once I got here, everything was going to be great. And then to just get hit with this truth bomb that, oh, well, you know, the next day is the same as this day, is the same as the day before. You have no choice but to sit back and go, that is me. That is my life right now. What am I doing where I'm just constantly looking for this next thing in order to get this like satisfaction that I think will come with just obtaining the next thing or accomplishing this next task? At what point do I look back and go, okay, that wasn't it, you know?
And it also, like, the idea of like the world tells you have to be like the best at something.
Oh yeah.
And like he finally got to like where he wanted, and he felt the exact same. And it's like definitely made me like, you know what? You don't have to be. It's such a bad message, but kind of a good message. Like you don't have to be the best. Just like enjoy what you're doing.
And again, I'm with you on this. This is a deep issue for myself for sure. And my wife tells me this all the time. She says that the reason I start and stop stuff so much, I will start working out, stop after 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I will take up a new hobby, stop it after 3 or 4 weeks. And I have always personally never really known why I've done that, but Sarah was able to crack it within a matter of 5 years of knowing me. She's like, you're obsessed with being the best at stuff, and you can't let yourself just do something. You can't just do something because you like it. You do something with the intent of, I need to be really, really good at this thing. And you can't let yourself just be bad at it. like your point, though, is perfect because so much of that just sucks the life out of everything. Like just trying to constantly be like, oh, I got to be the best at this thing, or if I'm not, then it's a waste of my time, or whatever the case may be. And I think it's just because like you grow up, and if you're in an environment that's somewhat competitive at all, that's what you kind of get told, right? Is like you got to be the best at it, or else there's no reason for doing it.
Yeah.
But you miss out on like so many other opportunities or so many little things along the way that's like that would have been a sense of joy, or that would have been a sense of accomplishment, but I didn't recognize it as such because I was so obsessed with this one track mindset of just constantly trying to get to this next thing. And then a lot of this movie is encouraging the opposite. It's like, well, just slow down a little bit, like there's a lot of little things along the way that are also worth celebrating while you get to that point.
Yeah. And yeah, it was, I don't know, it was very eye-opening, and in like all aspects, like career-wise, and like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, which, I don't know, deep-ass movie. Pixar
Damn
is
it,
doing it
Soul.
to us again.
We set out to make this a nice, light-hearted, comedic podcast, and now we're deep into Soul, talking about our hopes and dreams as children and how we didn't reach them, but how it's still okay.
I can't wait till I throw out my suggestion to you, and you're going to be like, oh, wow, we're going the
complete 180, twisted all the way back around. But yeah, the one thing I guess that I would want to get across about this movie more than anything is that previous refrain where it's able to get that message across, where it's saying, there are so many little things in life that make life worth living, and not everything has to be about going out and having this amazing skill set or this very specific purpose for what your life is supposed to be like. It can be as simple as you enjoy pizza so much, and good for you. You should take that love of pizza and run with it and let that be your life. Like it could be as simple as that. And I think in that it gives weight and meaning to everyone's life in a weird way, And I think that the ability for Pixar to do that in a movie like this and not have it come off super heavy-handed is an extremely amazing accomplishment. And if this doesn't rack up awards of all kinds, in the next 2 to 3 months, I would be shocked.
Are they? Sorry to take this aside now. Are they having an Oscars this year? I thought they weren't.
That is a good question, and I mean, you'd have to think. I was contemplating this after watching it, and you had brought it up earlier. Is this potentially the best movie of the year? Just because there really haven't been that many movies that have come out where you go, oh, in a normal year, that would be a Best Picture Oscar, nominee, or, oh, that person would definitely get a Best Actor nom for that.
Like, if there is an Academy Award, like, this should win Best Picture.
You would think. It got pushed back. It's scheduled to take place April 25th, 2021. I don't really know if they're doing that with an idea that maybe people will be vaccinated and maybe they'll have a legitimate ceremony or something, but that's when it is. And it's for movies released from January 1st of last year to February 28th of 2021.
Okay. So
there's still a long way to go. But Variety actually has Oscar predictions for 2021. And as I'm looking through some of them, it is kind of interesting to think about some of the things that they think would be nominated for like Best Picture and whatnot. Because they've got things like Mank, which, did you watch Mank on Netflix?
I didn't. I wanted to, but that's the problem, is like with 2020, 2021, we're now in 2021, is like if you miss something in the first week, you're like, there's already 100 things coming out and you can't.
Absolutely. And since it's all on streaming for the most part, it almost feels like it's just like a dump.
Yep.
Where it's, oh, here's a bunch of new stuff coming out. And you just start blown away by all of the stuff that is just being thrown out at you.
All this stuff thrown out, and I watch, like 9 hours of wrestling.
So there's a lot to keep up with if you really think about it. It's actually interesting. There are a lot of different things on here. So Mank is one of them. The Trial of the Chicago 7, which was another Netflix movie that I liked a lot.
I didn't see that either, but that looked really good.
I would recommend Trial of Chicago 7 and then Mank. Mank to me is a movie where it's probably only applicable, or you're only probably going to be really invested in it and think that it's really good if you like the subject matter, which is Citizen Kane. If you don't like Citizen Kane, or you don't really care about that, I think it's kind of hard to keep up with everything that's going on.
I'll have to rewatch Citizen Kane because I haven't seen that since college. So
yeah, and that was our Oscar break for the podcast. Back to Soul. So I think we've kind of said everything that we wanted to say about it, though. But do you have anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to make special mention of?
Couple side notes. The pizza looked tremendous.
Yes, which I was going to say, if it was kind of like a alien coming to Earth situation with 22, and I have to say that's a very smart and logical thing to do if aliens do come. Feed them pizza. Give them our very best of what we have to offer up front. Don't mess around and try to say, oh, we're peaceful, we're this, we're that. We're none of those things. So just give them pizza, let them know what we're about. That hopefully will keep us from being annihilated.
Wow. Oh my God. I like where your head's at.
Big brain thinking right there.
And then I guess my one other note was Jamie Foxx is not getting enough credit. The guy is in so many good things.
Mm-hmm. I think that Jamie Foxx might be just a little bit, like, he's always got kind of like one foot in the loony bin for me. He's an interesting cat. So I think that maybe that's what holds him back.
Gotcha. Because I just watched Baby Driver a couple days ago. Have you seen Baby Driver?
Yes, fantastic flick. I love that movie.
He's so good in it, and that movie is so good. So Jamie Foxx, love Django, one of my favorite movies.
Shout out to you, Jamie Foxx. You did a great job in this. All of the voice acting was really well done in this, actually. I know that's like a weird, nice critique to have, but it really was. Everybody was awesome. I loved it all. One thing that I wanted to mention before we go, this was a worlds collide moment for me because I love music, as we both know, and love the movies and the streaming. The composers for the score of the movie that was not jazz, so those kind of sort of like electronic beats in the middle when we were in the Soul Worlds, was Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who, if you don't know, at this point have done so many different movies. Mostly work with David Fincher on stuff. So they did the Social Network soundtrack, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl. They've done like all those types of movies. I love their stuff so much.
Oh, yes. That makes sense now. That I can get that like Social Network vibe from it. And
it's crazy to me that they were able to do this one so well, just because you got Trent Reznor, lead singer of Nine Inch Nails, and then when he's worked with Atticus Ross before, you get this like very droney, dark electronic music. And then they were like, you know what? You know who would be great for this Pixar movie that we have about finding one's inner peace and inner life? We should get the guys that do the dark drone electronic music from those David Fincher movies. Let's get those guys in here. And it works so well. They're so good at what they do.
God, this movie rocks.
This movie was great. So I just wanted to there, though. Shout out to those two. They're awesome at what they do.
I decided this is my movie of 2020.
Yeah, when we did our Palm Springs one last year, we said that was kind of our favorite 2020 movie. This one is right up there. And I think that it's very interesting that a movie that basically centers around animated little blue squishy souls, a talking cat, and a bunch of jazz was what I think was the best movie of 2020 for me. So
Hey,
good.
2020 is a weird year.
It really is. Okay, so that's really all we have for Soul. So I know that you said that you have an idea for next week's app. I think I might know where you're going with this because I think we discussed it a little bit last week.
It's not. It's gonna throw you off. It's gonna throw you off so much.
It's not the Edge movie?
No.
Okay. All right. It is going to throw me off then.
We could do that.
No, hit me with what you got.
I last night watched, which might be in my tier of like throw it on movies. Like my life has changed after watching this. Kong Skull Island. Have you seen Kong Skull Island?
I have not, but I'm interested and I'm intrigued because I have heard so many different things about this movie. People love it. Some people hate it. And then other people have just said that it's the weirdest movie to ever be made.
I like 15 minutes in, I like was just like, this is one of the greatest things I've ever watched in my life.
Okay. You know what? I can dig it. I can dig us doing that for next week's app. And you know what? It's a nice departure from the two movies that have come before it. Just nothing but monsters, action, and weirdness.
I'll say it threw me off because it's like half a Vietnam movie. It actually gets really deep into like war, like the idea of war and stuff.
So we're gonna get deep again.
We're gonna get deep, but then we're also gonna get like, I mean, Kong is. I'm gonna say this little teaser for the people to join next week. I realized Kong is kind of hot in the movie. He like has a phenomenal body.
Okay, we got hot gorillas.
Look up what he looks like in the movie.
A gorilla? Oh, I'm seeing an image right here on Google, and yikes, that is
his back. They like showed his back at one point as like, and I was like, holy shit, he's ripped.
It kind of looks like they just took a photo of Brock Lesnar training for a UFC event, and they go model Kong after that. I wouldn't have been surprised if he had the giant sword tattoo on his stomach from Brock.
When he makes his appearance in the movie, dum, 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 dum.
Hit the music. Kong's coming.
Oh God. I mean, I don't know if you want to do a vote or we can do.
You know what? Let's put the vote aside. This seems like a slam dunk opportunity for me. So next week, you heard it here first. Kong Skull Island.
It's on HBO Max if you need.
It's on HBO Max, and I think I also just saw that it's on Hulu as well. So you've got multiple ways that you can watch. Yeah, watch now on Hulu. You got multiple ways that you can watch, people. Hit up HBO Max, hit up Hulu, do whatever you got to do to watch Kong Skull Island before it comes out next week.
You already know my feelings. It's an A+, and you should honestly just buy the Blu-ray and just have it.
Repeat viewings, watch it over and over again.
When Amazon takes over everything and it becomes Skynet, at least you got that hard copy of Kong Skull Island.
Because you never know when like a 1984 situation is going to occur or a Fahrenheit 451 and they outlaw Kong Skull Island because of its mastery and because it promotes some weird non-communist agenda.
I often think that, like, let me real quick look at my movie selection. I often think like, you know what, when it all goes to hell, at least I have like the best of mankind, like on Blu-ray.
On Blu-ray, right.
And by best of mankind, I mean the pro wrestler.
Good stuff all the way around. I actually should probably, at this point, just so that I can give myself a therapy session when needed, I should probably just buy Soul. I know that you can stream it all the time on Disney Plus, but you know what? that could be here today, gone tomorrow. The physical copy on Blu-ray will live forever. So
what you can do is like, you can have like an emergency, like a fire hydrant where you like break the glass. If you're ever like,
yeah,
I'm not feeling it today. let's watch Soul.
Let's watch Soul. And then I'll just buy replacement glass every time that I have to break it.
Sarah's like, son of a bitch, and she's just sweeping up the broken glass.
Taking a little handheld vacuum and going over it each time that I break it. Not a bad idea. We'll have to invest.
Honestly, like, yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect for like a 2-week break. Like, work has been a grind. Like, I have like new life going into work tomorrow.
It's a palate cleanser for the mind is really what it comes down to.
It really does. I mean, Soul changed my life.
That's a perfect place, I think, to leave this one off at. Soul changed my life. So for next week, we've got Kong Skull Island. We'll see you guys there. It will be completely different than the past 2 weeks. If you haven't liked them, if you did like these past 2 weeks, we'll still, we'll dabble in some serious stuff going forward. But let's do a palate cleanser of our own and get a little bit of Kong Skull Island in there.
I will say I didn't make a point of this before we go. I think this movie also made me appreciate this podcast so much because I feel like we were like, whenever I've wanted to start a podcast, I've always like compared it to like, oh my God, we have to be part of my take or it's a complete failure.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
like, you know what? It's just two bros talking it out. Maybe like talking about deep shit sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're talking about how Kong is kind of hot. So we're talking about, maybe we're going to talk about Simpsons Hit and Run. Like, this is what life's all about.
This is really what it's all about. Just sharing some brotastic moments and life-affirming decisions that we've made over the course of our time here on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, this really is a soul appreciation podcast.
It really is. We might have to do something to bookmark or star this one so that it's a podcast that we come back to over and over again.
Maybe once a year we do a soul episode.
And we'll just keep on revisiting it just to give the people that little bit of a push to get them through the year.
Yep.
Especially in these trying times.
Yep. These strange and uncertain times.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode. We hope that you guys had as much fun and as much life affirmation as we had in making it for you. Until next week with the seminal Kong Skull Island reviews, we will see you later. Love you guys.
Love you. Bear down.